to talk about this topic that I think is really timely, which is about spiritual discernment. Now, what does that mean? So many people that I hear, including myself, feel like they're getting all this information. We're in an information overload. And everybody's got an opinion, everybody's an expert on something, and things come at us. But what we often forget is our greatest power is our power to choose. We get to choose what information we want to hold on to, what information we want to believe, and what information just doesn't resonate with us. That's what we're talking about when we talk about spiritual discernment. So, if you're somebody who feels like you get caught in indecision and you have trouble making decisions, or you tend to be a follower, or are worried about making the wrong decision, you're going to want to tune in right now as my good friend Dolores Fazzino and I talk about this topic from just a personal standpoint, as well as from a healthcare standpoint and professional standpoint. You're going to want to tune in. So I want to welcome Dolores Fazzino here. And here we go. Welcome, Dolores.
Thanks, Jennifer. Nice to be here.
So
Great topic.
yes, yes. Well, we often have conversations. So Dolores is a nurse practitioner. You work in the OR suite often, but you also have a beautiful spiritual coaching and counseling program where you really help people shift the way that they're viewing their health and their well-being. And I know that you have a podcast that you're going to start putting out. You have a lot of different books, little mini books that you have put out, all about healing in ways that you never thought was possible. So this, I think, ties into everything that you talk about, everything that I talk about, what we go through professionally as well as personally, as we're trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way for us to do this? What's the best? How do you do that? How do you reach these people? How do you do that? It's all about spiritual discernment, right?
I totally agree. And, I think that, you know, humanity right now is ripe for picking with this because we're in such an overflow and abundance of distraction.
Mhm.
There's a lot of noise out there right now. A lot of people are, you feel like you're being sold to. Maybe, you can't say no. It's hard for you to say no. And it's like deciding what is the right thing for you, because the bottom line is that it comes back to self all the time.
Mm.
It's like self-nurturance, self-care, self-worth, self-respect, self-value. It's just like we are amazing creatures, and the beauty is that we're here on earth because we chose to be here, because we experience free will.
Mm.
Now, our free will is our sovereign right. Nothing can interfere with it unless we allow it to. And, you got to take that a step further. How many times do we walk around in unconscious mode and we give our power away? A
Mm.
lot of times we don't realize we give our power away because we are operating from being unaware or unconscious.
Right.
So, with that in mind, it's like, so a lot of people right now, I think since our COVID, pandemic era, post-pandemic, that was the great awakening. And it's just like now we've just catapulted to another level of that noise. And how do you decide what is the right thing for you versus not?
Mm.
It's about having a renaissance and coming back to self, and having a relationship with yourself so you could make the right choice for you, no matter what is happening around in your world.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I was listening to, I forget who it was, but there was somebody on, I think it was Instagram, when my brother and I send each other things back and forth. And we were talking about what is a spiritual awakening, and how, when you feel like, gosh, why aren't people seeing these things that I'm seeing? Or why are people following this trend or this path, or following all along? like sheep almost, like just this is the way we're going. So everybody's just blindly following and blindly believing whatever they're being told instead of questioning. And it's the questioning that we start to get that discovery, and that when we are curious, we actually start to figure out like truth and pick through truth. But for many of us, many people, no one's ever sort of put it in a way, at least for me, never really put it away. It's like people used to get into trouble. When I was a kid, I got into trouble all the time for asking questions, right? I got into trouble all the time for not necessarily just following what I'm being told.
Mhm.
So, it becomes like a conditioned response where a lot of people are afraid, or they think that maybe an authority figure, be it a doctor, be it a nurse practitioner, be it a government official, somebody more in the know or with more knowledge is telling us something. We are kind of conditioned to just believe what they're saying instead of to question it, so we figure out what is like what rings true for us, right? And I'm hearing you're saying the way to really take back your power is through that questioning and that awakening. And the way we awaken and we grow and we develop and we sort of stay along our path is by that spiritual discernment, which is the questioning and that tuning into what is true for me. And like I like to say, when somebody's telling me something, I'll say, "Yep, I'll take that. Okay, that resonates." But then there are times where people have said stuff to me that I'm like, "Yeah," through business and some of my business, like when I'm learning the business thing, some things ring true, but sometimes I don't want to follow the algorithm. Sometimes that doesn't work for me, right?
Exactly. And, I think we're in a society today, when you look at the external, there's a lot of cut and paste products out there.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of interesting too, because, it's like there's a lot of noise. I just wonder what the underlying intention is sometimes with some of these things. So, and this is how, when you are more spiritually discerning, you're going to see and witness that. You'll
Yeah.
see something, it's like when you ask a lot of questions, and questions are important. And Jennifer, I too was always, my parents didn't know what to do with me
Mm,
because I questioned everything. And because sometimes a lot of it, even as a youngster, didn't make any sense to me.
yeah.
And they just, of course, they're conforming to what society
Yeah.
says is quote normal. Well, that's the biggest cosmic joke ever.
Yeah.
you know and it wasn't, because it's like, what you know. It's like that you don't know where you know it from, but you just know to the core of you that something's off.
Yep.
And that is when you need to follow that and trust that. So important. So important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like I remember bringing it to giving an example, bringing it to a healthcare situation. I remember when I just felt off. I was tired. I didn't have the energy. I ate right. I exercised. I was sleeping, but my sleep was disturbed. And I just didn't have the energy. And I remember going to the doctor, my primary care physician, and saying, like, I just don't feel right. Like something's off. And being a medical intuitive, I'm like, I think it's my thyroid.
Mhm.
And of course, they run all these tests. Everything's normal. I just had another podcast episode where I was talking to a chiropractor. She's a chiropractor, but she doesn't like adjusting. And she talked about, what do you do when the labs are normal, and how do you, like, there's
Mm.
information there when you shrink the normal. So I just kept questioning. I wasn't believing with that when they told me, my doctor said, everything's normal. I think you're fine. I was like, but I know I'm not fine. So
Mhm.
I literally, being a spiritually discerning person, I kept going and seeking somebody who was willing to work with me and dig a little
Mhm.
deeper. And
Yep.
I found that's when I figured out that I had this MTHFR, this genetic mutation, that I needed to have higher doses of B12, that even though my B12 was normal, I really needed to be in the higher end of that.
Yeah.
And, all of that stuff, I found that, I had to really manage the stress, that stress was burning through the limited amounts that I did produce. So, it's that like not necessarily taking what somebody says, but trusting that inner voice and your gut that says, nah, it's something more. Something else is going on. Same with education, right? In
Yep.
education, to take it out of a healthcare realm, maybe I have some listeners who don't have any, and you have some listeners maybe that don't have any health issues, but maybe you have a child who isn't learning the way that everybody else is. And when we compare and we expect ourselves or our children to follow a certain path because that's what we're told they're supposed to do, we can miss a lot of things. But when
Oh,
we are spiritually discerning and we tune in and we really look a little bit deeper, we can start to see what, they might need a little different approach, or they might need, you know, maybe they're having trouble reading and they need to have a multimedia kind of a thing. But this is where, instead of giving our power away to other people to figure things out, we need to be more spiritually discerning by asking questions, probing a little deeper
mhm.
to really connect to what is the truth for us or for our children in the moment.
Oh, well said, Jennifer. And that is so true because, a lot of times, and I speak too from, the medical experience, but even my own personal experience too. There's so many times that you go to the doc. I'm like my primary care doctor's worst nightmare,
Mhm.
because it's just
I
like,
do.
I have to laugh.
Comes with the territory.
Well, you know what? It's just like people have to remember that you're only visiting the primary care doctor for what, 15 minutes, the tops?
Mm-hmm.
And they're supposed to have all the answers for you. And you've lived in your entire Taj Mahal your whole entire life. And you know all the idiosyncrasies of how it works and functions and what doesn't work and what doesn't work. And it's interesting because when you ask questions or, you know, I would say, give pushback. You're described as a difficult patient because you're not following protocol.
Right.
But I've had to. One thing that really rang true for me was this: primary care doctor. You know, for me, my lipid panel is like off the charts. I mean, it's a genetic thing. It's been like that my whole entire life. It doesn't matter if I'm 50 pounds lighter, 50 pounds heavier. It's pretty much constant. And so they were really pushing to put me on like a Lipitor or one of those statins that are like, well, anyway, so what happened was I did about 10 years ago, just because I didn't know any better. It didn't do anything. And I didn't see the point of continuing it because it didn't change the things. And there was too many side effects with it. And we were just finding out about all the complications. And so flash forward, 10 years later, she said, you need to be put on Lipitor. I said, no, I don't. And I had also had, probing my own little curiosity, I had a total body ultrasound. There was no plaque in any of my arteries. Okay. So blood pressure low, pulse low. And she was saying that what she said, well, you need to do that. I said, no, I don't. I said, I'm not going to. I said, I don't believe in the risk. She said, well, you're a risk for a heart attack. I said, no, I'm not. But she insisted that I go and get an EKG right in her office, which I did. You need to see a cardiologist. She was like projecting all her fears onto me so
Mm.
I could create a problem for myself. So I did go to the cardiologist to humor her.
Yeah.
And the cardiologist, the nurse practitioner in the office said, why are you here? I said, well, I'm not really sure because my primary care doctor seems to think I'm like a walking time bomb, and I know I'm not.
Mm.
And so I met with a cardiologist, and she, of course, cardiology is like a lot of statistics. They plug in a lot of numbers, and then they give you like, you're at risk for such and such. With all the numbers that plugged in with my family history, I was at risk at 7% of having a heart attack. She said,
Right.
"Well, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I'm humoring my primary care doctor.
Mm.
You guys have got to stop projecting your fears onto people because you have no idea. Some people who are unconscious are going to start creating that for themselves." And
You
I
know
said,
what,
"That's a
Dolores?
huge disservice."
It's sort of a CYA approach, the cover your ass approach, which has come because, as you know, I'm married to a surgeon.
Yep.
There is a degree of I have to check these boxes and say that I referred because, in the event that this person has a heart attack. And I understand that, but I also respect wholeheartedly your discernment and your connection to yourself to say, I'm not at risk. Yeah, my lipids might be high, but I'm not at risk because I don't have plaque. Plaque, for all you people listening, is what narrows the arteries and can create the issues that can create blockages or ischemia in the heart. She didn't have any plaque to her, you know, and she didn't have a family history. Family history often, but not always, can cause you to have more of a risk for heart disease or whatever it is that the concern is. But many practitioners, because they have been taught and told and they follow this blueprint, because insurance companies and the legal system wants to make sure that you dotted your I's, crossed your T's, they do that. Um, so
And unfortunately, they're creating more problems for people. So yes, I get that.
yeah.
But the thing is like when they are, it's like you could tell she was projecting all her fears onto me. I could feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could feel it. And I'm like, I had to like protect myself energetically because nope, that's not my stuff. That's not my stuff. That's not my stuff.
Right.
But,
Right.
it's just interesting because, you and I both are aware. What about the other people that come into the office that
100%.
are like, I call them sitting ducks.
Yeah.
And it's just energetically, they just take that on
Well,
as their
it creates
truth.
fear, and it creates fear because
And it creates the problem for
yeah,
them too.
yes, yes, and this is why the being able to spiritually discern, but also be accountable for your own health and well-being
Absolutely.
and for your own thoughts and your own mind, and the way that stress, as we know, plays a huge role in our health, and fear, worry creates more
Mhm.
stress. To your point, I was like, just to piggyback what you just said, I was just at a well visit check with my son that had leukemia. We go back every year. He has to have an echocardiogram done to look at his heart because
Mhm.
of the damage that some of the chemotherapy can do long term on the heart. So we have our well visit checkup, and you know I see a nurse practitioner. She's incredible. Or my son sees a nurse practitioner. She's incredibly thorough. She always has this nice printout. But she, you know, said to us at the end, you do have a very significant history for cancer. So my husband had melanoma. His father had melanoma. My grandfather had melanoma. We do have a significant history. But again, just because we have a history doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to get that or my son's going to get that. It does mean I need to be a little bit more diligent in my
Mhm.
lifestyle and more accountable for my behavior. But it
Absolutely.
doesn't necessarily mean that I now am going to get, right? That's like medical hexing. But she said,
I like
no,
that, medical
that's
hexing.
medical hexing. That's what. So just
Oh.
because we might have like a gene. So she said to me, there's genetic testing and genetic counseling that we can do for you. Would you be interested in that? Now, my husband, because he did have a melanoma and there was a link between melanoma and pancreatic cancer,
Mhm.
his father has had several melanomas. He decided to have the genetic testing done. And we were just talking about this just this weekend over whether or not, because we just had this visit with my son's doctor, whether or not we should all have genetic testing because we both have melanoma on both sides of our family. We have
Yeah.
had pancreatic cancer on both sides of our family. Is it something? And he, this is where we're both spiritually awakened. However, he thinks I'm a little too blindly trusting because I said, you know what? I feel like we're careful in the sun. We are, our lifestyle, we check our skin regularly. We are working on stress management techniques. Even if my genetic predisposition says that maybe I'm at risk for this, I don't know if my lifestyle would change. I don't know if anything would change because I'm already
Right.
living in tune, right? I'm already connected to the messages of my mind, body, and spirit. But for my husband, it was a wake-up call. His melanoma was a wake-up call, right? My
Sure.
son's cancer is what my son's experience is why that was my awakening, my
Yep.
spiritual awakening, to recognize that I need to be in tune with not only my own mind, body, and spirit needs, I also need to be in tune with my children's mind, body, and spirit needs and teach them how to do that. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
And, I think it's so important, talking about the whole thing with genetics and, just because your parents or it's in your gene pool doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It's like it's all I kind of feel we have a choice. We could
right,
choose to go down that pathway
right,
consciously or unconsciously,
right.
or, do something about it. So being proactive and, and it's like, yeah, change your diet, become more active, but also do the deeper work, like
Yeah,
the emotional, mental, spiritual, and dimensional work that needs to be done, because it's all energy. And it's like a lot of times the deeper dive is where the gold nuggets are that
absolutely.
could, that could, realign your body, mind, and soul so you have good health and good wellness and stuff like that as you move forward.
Right.
And for some people, that's like, they're like, how the heck do we do that? Well, you know what? It's baby steps. You start introducing some mindful activity, anything that's going to allow you to be in the present moment,
Yes.
meaning that you get lost in doing something and you lose track of time. That's what we mean by in the present moment. It's about,
Or can
go
I
ahead.
clarify something just really quickly? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yes, to me, that's being in your joy. That's when you are really like aligned with what you're doing. But also
Exactly.
being in the present moment is not worrying about the past, not focusing on the past and letting the past experiences pull you into a spin, not projecting or focusing on the future
Right.
because you don't have control over that. The only thing you have control over is the present moment. So really sitting and being present with whatever is, but also allowing yourself to kind of take that pause instead of feeling pressured to make decisions or pressured to take that pause, to take the time
Exactly.
to connect to what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I in this moment?
Yeah. And, it's going from reacting to witnessing.
Yes. Like taking a step back and observing
Mhm.
what is going on.
Observing
Yeah.
and witnessing what's happening, because you get a lot of information that way, because when you are in the present moment, you're able to see the bigger picture even though you're right here right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird concept, but it's like you're right here, but you're in other places in the room too.
Right. And I talk about the stress spin all the time, which is often when we get stressed, that's when we get reactive. And
Absolutely.
we get pulled into the stress spin when we attach to a thought or a feeling or an experience. When we go from instead of I'm feeling, I am, that's when you're attaching to something. I am at risk for cancer or I am triggered right now. Well, okay, you might be, but what are you feeling right now?
Right.
And that's the place where you can start to take back your power from a place of, to your point, observing what is actually going on. What is the big picture of what's happening right now? And then how do I kind of get to the truth? That's the spiritual discernment part.
It's absolutely. And, it's the other part too that, um, I want to touch on emotions a little bit, because people really give that a bad rap, but that's all part of being human. And I think the natural tendency is to avoid them,
Mm,
ignore them, put them on the
Or
shelf, maybe deal with them later, compartmentalize them. But yet it's energy, and it's unexperienced energy. So what does that mean? It stores. And then finally, the tipping point tips into the physical body. Simplified version of what it really, the process. And so when I want to make one note here is that, did you know that in order to experience your emotions, you have to be in your body, and you have to be in the present moment?
Mm, yeah.
Okay. So, and a big telltale sign, if people are not in their body, they say, I think I feel. I think, they intellectualize their emotions, because that's a big telltale sign that they're disconnected from their emotions and they're not in their body. Now, when you're in your body, you're experiencing your emotions. That's being in the present moment. So, what you do is, instead of trying to react, popping out of the present moment, and this emotion comes up, and you're doing everything you can to stuff it in the box and put it on the shelf,
To
I
avoid the discomfort of the emotion. Yes.
exactly. I invite you just to be with what you're feeling. Just experience that and just love and appreciate it, because it's part of who you are that wants to come back to home to who you are. Okay. It's a part of you that's kind of out there that wants to reunite with you. So when you love and appreciate it and just send it lots of love and just hold the space for it, guess what? You're taking a step into that energy bubble. And by the time you're taking your next step, you might be out of it and it dissipates.
Right.
It's that easy.
And
And the thing is, it comes to neutrality. So
but
it's not going to be pushing your button.
for the listeners that are saying, okay, that's great, but how do I do that? One of the biggest ways to start is to just put your hand on your heart or your hand on your belly, and to really like bring yourself back to your body and to feel where you feel that feeling in your body. And then with your breath, you can start to kind of shift a little bit of that. And then that's when then you connect to the mind, which is like I just did a compassion meditation because I found myself triggered on this wonderful trip I was at. I was finding myself triggered and getting really fiery and emotional, and I had to really feel it in my body, but then breathe to it, and instead of judging it, saying to myself, wow, I'm feeling this right now, right? I'm feeling really fiery and really like
Mhm.
tense right now. I got to first connect to myself. And then the rest of the meditation is learning how to, just like me, this person is trying to find their place in the world, just like me, and going through that, which helps to open your heart, which helps to kind of dissipate all of the thoughts and the projections that take us away from the truth of
Yeah.
what's actually happening.
True. Very true. And there's so much somatic response to emotions. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes if people could think about something that triggers them, guaranteed there will be a response in the physical body, some like a tightening or a pain or a flutter. There's something there. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's so important to be curious, like we're talking about discernment and curiosity and asking questions. It's like, be curious about that and just tap into it and just say, interesting, I'm feeling triggered, I'm feeling this here in my gut. It's like, what is my gut telling me? And my my usual mojo to deal with stuff like that is that if I'm feeling something, I just have to sit with it, but also just send it a lot of love and appreciation, because it's more of a shamanic approach. Because a lot of times when you're getting triggered, it's like if you boil it down to the core, it's the same core issue. It's just another theme and variation.
Right.
And it's like just bringing it all back to loving that piece of you that pretty much probably fractured off of your soul at a time and place when it initially happened, but it keeps recurring because it's saying, hey, I want to come back home. Hey, I want to come back home. And now's the opportunity to reunite with this part and just love it up like your favorite child or favorite pet unconditionally, and just give it so much pink love and light, and just surround it and just embrace it and bring it back to your heart space. And it's really very powerful because it doesn't take that long.
No, and that's
And you don't,
compassion. That's
and
compassion, but also
oh my God.
forgiveness. That's the harder part for
Yeah.
all you listeners that are like, yeah, sometimes
That's another talk.
totally another talk, but that's like when you find that you're having trouble and struggling with loving it and inviting it in, that means that there's work to be done to let go of some of the judgment, some of the pain, some of the whatever that is. That's a deeper level of healing. But this is a great, one other thing that as you were talking about the somatic, and when we're looking for tips or providing tips, as we're talking about the spiritual discernment, how do you know? I can hear some people saying, well, how do you know when something's right for you or true for you? And there is a somatic way. I had another meditation I did about this, the crossroads meditation, because this is how I do it, where you can feel it in your body. And I'll give two examples. There's the one feeling when you pause for a second, you have to make a decision, or when somebody's telling you, your body will have a reaction. Like I remember when I was told, way back with my second son, when I had a neuropsych evaluation done and they're telling me that like he's got a below average IQ and all this, and I literally felt my body like contracting and just like I was taking shots, right? It felt like somebody was. That's how afterwards, after I processed this, I realized, because it wasn't true. Like it wasn't resonating with me. It was like I felt assaulted almost because it was not true. It was being put upon me, but it was not true. So when I sat and I literally, as we just talked about the tips, I literally stepped back, got into the present moment, and felt what I was feeling. I felt like, wow, like that just doesn't feel right. And then when I looked at the big picture, I thought, well, if this kid with a below average IQ, if he has a below average IQ, would he be able to do XYZ, all these things that I know he does and he can do? Would this be the same kid that when he wants to see out the window, takes a coffee can out of the cabinet at 3 years old to put over by the window so he can step up and look out? That's not below average IQ.
No,
So
it's not.
that's where my body was letting me know that this was not in alignment with what my soul knows to be true. And then on another level, when you're trying to make a decision, you can feel like that energetic tight tingling. I did my crossroads meditation for myself when I had to make a decision, and my mind wanted me to decide one thing, but when I looked at it, I felt this like lump start to form. When I thought I did the visualization, I was going down. I felt the contraction again, which is your no, or a no. And then when I thought about another path, I felt lighter and freer. That's when you know that that is the truth, right? That's the right path for you. Or even when I'm eating something, my body, it's funny, wheat and I are not friends. I try to be friends. I want to be really good friends with wheat, but we are not friends. And when I eat something, there are times where I'll either start to hiccup or I start to get like a little tingle in my throat. I have learned that that is my body telling me this is not for me.
Yeah.
So I got to listen to that.
Absolutely.
So and pause, and to your point, I'm recapping, get present, connect to our body, what's going on in our body, because that's going to tell us a lot. And then take a step back to see the big picture. That's when we can be more spiritually discerning.
Absolutely. Very well surmised and very, I can't add anything to it, but
I was
it's
going to say, do you have anything else that you can think of that you would want to add to that?
the other thing is
Or
just,
tip?
you can trust your gut.
Yes. That's where I think we fall short. So many people are afraid to trust themselves. They know, but they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of
Yeah,
making a mistake. But
yeah.
here's the beauty is we always learn, even when we maybe don't make the right choice,
Correct.
we
But you
can.
know what? The thing is sometimes the choice that you make is the right choice, and you
Right.
don't see that until way down the road, and you're looking back, and you see how that decision catapulted you, and you probably maybe got connected with some people that you would have never gotten connected with unless that happened. So the thing is that you're on your path. You need to, you know what? There's no such thing as a mistake. They're growth opportunities.
Yes. Love
Okay.
that.
Growth opportunities, because we are here as humans, human beings having an experience. We're here at the University of Earth. We're all getting PhDs. We're in the PhD track. And it's just like we're learning stuff, because these lessons that we're learning, and our free will comes into this as well, with our choices of what we discern. There may be, you come to this earth to learn a lesson maybe about worthiness. Okay, core lesson, just for an example. There may be 23 different pathways, possibilities to work on this. Your free will, you choose what's in alignment with you at the time, what you're being drawn to, what you're leaning forward to, leaning into, as they call.
Mm-hmm.
If something feels right for you and you're being led that way, I think you could trust. I know you could trust that.
Yeah.
When you're feeling the resistance and pulling back like it's a hell no, please don't do it,
Yes.
because you will live to regret that. That's like your inner wisdom, the subtlety of that speaking to you. You need to be quiet enough, quiet the mind, be fully present in order to access that at times. It
And
doesn't happen when you're in your head thinking. It
yes,
does not happen.
absolutely. But I believe we need to use that knowledge is a good thing, but we need to balance
Absolutely.
it with that intuition
Absolutely.
and anchor it in the present moment. But I love what you were saying. We all are getting a PhD. Just like a PhD takes work and takes a commitment to doing the work,
Yep.
to be able to kind of live in alignment and awaken spiritually and spiritually discern and follow the path that is the most aligned for you, you have to be willing to do the work. There
Well,
are no easy, quick,
right. And what I tell people too is this. You know what? It's a journey, not a destination. It's
Mhm.
not a one and done. It's a process. And there's no magic wand and there's no bypass.
Yeah,
And we're in a
absolutely.
society that wants rapid fire, things fixed, one and done, and stuff like that. No, that's not what it's all about, people.
Right,
It's
right.
like, and you know what? It's like when you're ready, you're ready. And when you're ready to do the work, you're going to do the work. But until that
Absolutely.
point, it's not going to happen.
Right. And if you want to feel more calm and more empowered in your life, you have to be willing to do this work. You have to be able to first discern and figure out what is right for you and what is not right for you. And that's what we're talking about here.
Right. And coming full circle is that there's many choices and opportunities out there to get to your pathway to where you need to go. Just choose the right ones for you. For what's going to work for one person may not work for somebody else. That's why
Absolutely.
there's so many wonderful opportunities out there
Right.
to grow.
Yeah,
So that's the, the joy of actually being in your spiritual discernment. It's like you could choose, and you choose what's aligned with you, what you're leaning into, what
yeah,
you're being drawn to, what is your next step. And it's just like, if you ask that question to yourself, what is my next step? The next step presents itself.
absolutely. Well, so speaking of alignment and feeling like who is the right fit for you, if somebody finds that you are the right fit for them and they would like to continue or hear more from you, follow you more, how would people follow you
They
and
could
connect?
they could follow me. I have a YouTube video, and it's called Healing in Ways You Never Thought Possible. And it talks about looking at possibilities beyond traditional Western medicine and integrating that with complementary alternative and mind body type of techniques. And I could be reached through my website, drdoloresfazzino.com. And I have a free meditation that's a guided meditation. I could actually throw it in the feed here. Can I write this in here or no?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. I'll also put it in my show notes for
Yeah.
my
Okay.
I can back for all the lives and put it in the comments. In fact, we could do
Sure.
that, is go back into the lives. You also have, Dolores, if I recall, I believe you are doing a new podcast series about healing in ways that you thought were never possible, but you mentioned looking at the spontaneous recoveries of people that have
Yes.
sort of healed on their own. And where can they access that podcast? Oh, thank you.
Actually, I'm going to put this on the link too. It's on YouTube. Here we go. I got to do this right.
All right. I'm putting
Okay. Okay, there you go.
awesome.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to put this in because that is on a private chat that you just put that. So I'm putting it onto the live stream chat right now.
Thank you.
Here we go. Excellent. And then for me, if I resonate with you or you feel that whatever I said you found to resonate, you can reach me at jen@jenniferrentolo.com. You can go on to jenniferrentolo.com. I also have a Power and Now free masterclass that you can find the link in my bio. If you wanted to follow me on Instagram, it's at Jen, Jen, Ren, WREN, Tolo.com. Or that's the Instagram, sorry. But any of these, both Dolores and I work with people. We both come from a medical background, but also the school of real life. And both of us love to help empower people to take back their power over their own health and healing. So thank you for joining us here. And we really hope that you start to think about the spiritual discernment and not necessarily but follow your own truth and trust yourself to know what you need to be well.